It'd be, if the owner wishes to, 2 acres is the minimum for a septic field.
Right.
So they would be able to put a
Oh,
field.
yeah, no, I have no problem with that. I
Yeah.
understand that the place is big enough. I'm just wondering whether or not, for future, I don't know what you're planning to do with the rest of this.
I don't have any plans at the current time.
Okay, I'm just thinking for septic fields, we had a septic field in the back of our place and that was put in years and years and years ago.
I have a
And now
question.
it's sinking. And I'm just saying that, at some point.
Well, the current regulations.
Just hang on one second, sorry, Wolf. I'm sorry, just got, I don't know if you're recording or what, but we're recording this already. If you could put your phone away, please, it's distracting. And if you need to use your phone, just go out in the hallway and use it out there,
Are you
please.
talking to me?
Yes, sir.
What's distracting?
Well, I've asked you to put your phone away. You keep playing with it and it keeps pointing at me. I don't know what, if you're recording, so
I'm not
asking you to
recording
put it away.
anything, I'm just,
Just put it away there.
okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Wolf.
So the current regulations for septic fields are that you need a minimum of 2 acres and that you have an allowance if one field should fail, that you would have the room to put in a new field in to replace it. So what your concerns are where you are wouldn't relate to these properties because there would be enough property
To be able to
to
have
be able to have
another.
another.
You
Got
have
it.
2 acres to do 2 acres to do a field.
The other side of it is most of the fields nowadays are mound type anyways, kind of thing, so.
Well, they're mound type fields, but there's also a lot of 3 compartment fields now. So they greatly reduce the size of the property that you need for a field. When you use a 3 compartment field, the effluent coming out of the 3rd chamber is actually clean enough that you could drink it. So you can greatly reduce the size of the field. And now they're using different formats of foam and different types of peat moss in that final stage, that the size of the field is greatly reduced. You should be able to put one of those fields on a half-acre lot. And I don't know why Manitoba is the only province that is bound and determined to have holding tanks and not fields.
Yeah,
So
there's
You're
a
getting
number-
to something that I.
there's a number of different-
Of course,
But the
There's a
field,
number of different municipalities that actually allow that now, not in Manitoba, but.
Not Manitoba, but right across Canada.
but these septic fields are for everything. They're not just for your gray water. They're for.
That's correct.
It's everything, including your gray water.
And you have to have in Manitoba, I believe it's a 2 acre lot minimum
Minimum.
to have
Well,
that now, and you got 5 acres.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. There are exceptions to that rule if you do go with, just can't remember the name of it right now, but a biofilter mass where the field actually goes into, the last stage is actually a system of either foam pellets like you use to wash your dishes
Right.
with,
Mhm.
that hold a lot more bacteria that cleans the effluent. And it's either that or they use Irish peat moss in that last system. So there are systems out there that'll greatly reduce the harmful bacteria that's in the final effluent, but Manitoba's way behind in allowing
Of course
those.
we are.
Anyways,
That's interesting, okay.
my turn? Sure. Okay, just a comment. You've got that, between lot 3 and lot 4, you have that 60-foot right away, whatever you want to call it, kind of a thing in it. Just something to think about. If you go to 66 feet, you're actually the right size, then it could be, if need be, made into a municipal road, so it would access into that back.
So I don't have a problem changing that to 66.
I'm not saying to do it, I'm just saying it's better if you do kind
Later
of.
on in years,
But somebody's probably just gonna use that as a driveway, and 60 is good, but if you had 2 lots at the end there,
Yeah, and you needed to do a
I mean, we were
road.
just talking, the regulations to put a road in the arm of Alexander, it wouldn't be feasible to have large lots in the back there with your construction guidelines that you have currently.
no, it costs you
So
30,000
this way,
dollars for a road.
my thought was that it would be an access to one lot behind there.
But if you did 66, you're at the right width, and that if it had to at some point go to, it's there kind of.
You don't have to
You
do
don't
that,
have to,
he's
it's
just
just a
suggesting it might be a good idea.
No, it's interesting. If you look, there's actually a road that kind of goes diagonally on the south side of the property
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
And I've had discussions with Michelle about that, because that road was actually, became government, and then the government, the RM traded road, so now it belongs to the RM. So for me to access the back and open that road, I'd have to build it to the current standards, which is not wide enough to do. So it's basically dead space right now. until something changes down the road to access that whole back piece of property, which is something that down the road I might pursue again, but.
The driveway would be a lot cheaper than a road, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, was there any further discussion? We have a mover and a second, correct?
Yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor, carried. You can hang around for the rest of the meeting if you like.
Actually, did you not want to talk to both?
Yeah, I did, yeah. So,
You had another topic
Okay,
so you're gonna forward this now to back to Bolger and then.
in the next week or so?
Yes, okay. So the other thing that I did want to discuss briefly is shoreline erosion and what the requirements are now. I've had quite a few calls for doing work within the RM of Alexander, primarily on Atia Road, on Bayview.
Martin Drive,
Martin and Atia.
What's that?
Martin and Atia there.
Martin, yeah, on March 6th. I guess Randy and Honor they've dealt with Atia 6 and 8 Martin, I think it is.
yeah, I was up there.
Okay, and then on Bayview, Bova's property and his cousin next door. Then on Iron, or on, at the point there, Pelican Point, not Pelican Point, that's Victoria Beach.
Yeah.
Hillside Point, a couple there. So in the discussions that I've had, apparently there's different properties. Some are under control of the RM, now is my understanding. Some is hydro and some is still the province, the Crown. Is there a map where I can access to find out who it is that I need permitting from to do this now?
I believe we're in the process right now of determining some of that, especially up on Martin, because there was an issue, there was a question as to who owns the property that separates the houses from that cliff. There was originally a road supposed to go through there, and then the road was sold
It's never
and
built.
it was never built, so it was just taken off. I don't know what happened to it, and I'm not sure who owns that property right now, and we are investigating it.
So that's the ones on Martin?
That's the ones on Martin.
Okay, and on Bayview?
On Bayview, you could get that information from the front office there. They'd be able to tell you that what the adjacent landowner is in other areas.
Like adjacent, you mean on the water side?
Yes, like what's between the property owners on Bayview and and the water. They'd
Okay,
be
so
able
on
to tell
those
you.
ones, the properties, the frontage is eroded away, so it's actually right at the pin.
I guess, so then you
Well, then
want to
you-
know who's on paper still, right? They'd still be in control.
If the water's right to the
Right
water,
pin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if it
So
was crown land, see, and it's eroded, it'd still be crown land, I think, but it depends
even
on
with
which.
water?
even in the water,
We had
yes.
that discussion
Yes.
with Black Forest.
Yes, because they own right to the water, so they own in the water.
And there's
So
a
whoever
couple,
was supposed to have owned the land, they still own in the water.
Okay.
yeah, and there was that couple of them right on Lester Beach that own right into the water.
Okay, good.
But yeah, you're right, everyone's different.
But our mapping will still show who owns the adjacent, if it's a reserve, that our mapping will still show that.
And I don't know, is that the area, like if it is Crown, is that packages that are coming to us?
I'd have to double check to make sure it's those properties, but there are, most of them are coming to us, yes.
Yeah. So it's gonna be us eventually, more than likely, without checking right now for the specific one, but they're all coming back. to
So
the-
all the Crown properties, because I've also been in touch with Sheldon Kowalchuk
From Crown.
from Crown, yeah. And he's reluctant to
Yeah, they will be.
say anything right now.
Yeah, because they're in the process of returning some parcels of land, not all of them.
And that was supposed to be at the beginning of the summer, they said any day, so it's any day.
Don't worry.
We've been working on it since
A question
2010.
from Diane first, then I'll get you Jake.
I'm just wondering if all of these requests that you're getting for shoreline work, is that due to the high water?
Yes,
So my next question would be, in some of those properties, there used to be public shoreline reserve? That when the subdivisions went through, so when that ends up being in the water, what happens to that?
That's one of the determinations.
So we're right on to the people's property, so that the public reserve is in the water, is that what's?
Diane, I'm on Birchwood Road, but I'm on this side of it. I'm not right on the water side. The person who has the property in front of me that is on the water side had a buffer of 25 feet that belonged to the Crown or belonged to reserve, whatever. That has now eroded back, and she has had gabions and stuff put in because that is now her property that is eroding into the water. So the Crown still owns that water, that 25 feet, but it's all underwater now. But now it's eroded back, so it's her shoreline.
But the 25 feet had been set up by the local government district of Alexander.
Yeah.
And when we lost all of that public reserve.
And that public reserve on a lot of the properties, especially along there, has gone. It's back, and now it's reverted to private property.
I hadn't understood that that was property that they were going to be transferring back to us.
Well, that's some of it, yeah.
On some properties, not necessarily these.
The shoreline public reserve is different from the public reserves that have been set aside by the developer, which are used for public walkways. And,
Right.
and we could actually, we're in a position where,
But some of that's eroded too.
okay,
It's any of the public reserves that were created, when the subdivision was created.
Right.
So whether it's along the water or whether it's inside of a subdivision, it's any of the public reserves. So if it is along the water, then was created from a plan, then it would be one that's being transferred over to us.
Jay?
I think what we need in this is clarity. Wolf's looking for an answer as a permit for shoreline works. And it sounds like Crown's not going to give you that answer. So where do you get it from? Can we skip that? Or like, how do you get work done if no one's going to give you the answer? Just a yes or no.
So Jay, what Crown has told me is all they want is a work permit, so they know what's going on. What the RM has told me is that I have to apply like a building permit to the RM, which will go to CTEC, which will make recommendations, not a permit, they'll make recommendations, which will come back to the RM. And then based on their recommendations, the RM will either issue me a permit to do the work or not. The issue that.
We will, based off of the recommendations of SETC.
Okay, so that's my sticking point is CTEC often will come back with recommendations. They're not a plan, they're not engineered, they're not an engineered stamp drawing. They'll come back with recommendations. 9 times out of 10, the recommendations they come back with are for a plan that is not affordable to the property owner. The plan that I would submit is based on plans that I've used in the work that I've done for the last 20 years that has proven effective and it's lasted through storms in 2010, 2011, and the high water that we have now. But yet CTEC will often come back with recommendations that don't meet. I don't want to end up having to go through all these hoops and then council say, well, you're not following CTEC's recommendations, which I don't know what they're going to be at this point. And then I don't get a permit. So then I've spent money for nothing. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
And we've always, the RM, since I've ever been here, or as long as CTEC has been around, we've always done it that way because the building inspector is not an engineer. And it's more or less a free service to go to the SETC and their engineers that are on this board that make these decisions. The only other option, I guess, is that we could send it to our engineer and have our engineer review it. But our building inspector will not, he can't, he's not an engineer.
And the engineers also will not guarantee their work. That's one of the fundamental issues that I have with this is that the engineer, for them to guarantee the work, they're going to want to drill test holes there. They're going to want to do hydrological studies. They're going to want all these things. So you're going to be spending 10 to 15 grand before you start the work. And it's just, it becomes unaffordable to the homeowner.
There's some sites along Martin Drive that I know weren't engineered to basic, throws a rock against the bank. And if you go there now and look at that site versus where nothing's been done, you've got trees growing and weeds growing and no bank failure or minimal at best. And beside it where nothing's done, it's failed.
Exactly.
You know, if you were to engineer that same site that maybe cost, it was done years ago, so I'm going to say 25 grand. I bet you it would be closer to 70 engineered.
Yeah.
For your systems, Wolf,
Yeah.
like I know that you got different things. You could be putting those sheet piles in.
No, it's all natural rock that we're using.
Just
And
put
it's
rock in.
all based on pretty much the same formula that we've used that's worked. And that's the issue that I have. So if you look around the lake, there's a site in Victoria Beach that was engineered at the end of Arthur that completely failed, that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. On Pelican Point and in Lester Beach, they've used Gabion baskets, which are engineered, stamped, and those are all failing right now. They have a life expectancy of about 20 years. What's happening right now with the high water is that middle row of the Gabion baskets, which are basically metal containers full of smaller rock, about 3 to 6 inch, is those rocks are rolling around with the waves and they're braiding against the metal containers that they're held in. And those containers have also started to rust, and now the rocks are coming out of them, then the whole thing is collapsing. And to repair that or to do anything with that it's a huge mess, because you can't pick those gabions up with a machine. The only way you can do it is to open them up manually, take all the rock out of it. And if you try to do it with a machine, you end up with a bunch of small pieces of wire that end up in the sand or in the snow when you're doing it in the winter. So I have this aversion to the engineering component of it.
The rock facing that was done on Martin Drive, that was done just without permissions, without?
No, most of that was done through, we did go through CTEC, but because they were recommendations, we were issued the permit. So I had Wayne's Backwood at the time.
Right.
A lot, probably 5 of those jobs were done by us, by myself at Wayne's Backwood.
The one I'm thinking of was right beside Mimi's.
By the trail.
Yeah, and where she's got the metal stairs going down.
Yeah, we did that one. And then
Yeah,
now
I know.
Karen and the next door neighbor, they're gonna get it done, but Randy and Honor are doing that.
Okay,
But there's
and
all one of
but
the
that
same
has
design.
held up.
I know it has.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's got trees, like you said, it's got trees and stuff growing out of it, so it looks like part of a natural background. And the shore's not eroding any longer. And that's what
I
they want
think
done all the way along.
The boulders are the best way to go versus the Gabion baskets. I mean, I'm not an
So I
engineer
think what
either.
he's asking us is, can we give him approval to do this? Like, I
Yeah.
don't see a problem with
I
it,
don't
but,
either.
Well, unless it's on Crown.
well, if it's on Crown, we can't give you that.
Well, no, but Crown has already told you what.
Crown, they keep kicking it back. So Crown says, for me to do it on Crown land, they have to issue me a work permit. The work permit is based that I satisfy the RM.
The RM.
The RM says it's not our land.
So it's a chicken and
I
egg.
It's a-
would like to have a chat with Shelton about this, to
Yeah,
be honest, because this is.
I mean, it's time that we figure out something that I'm not. So
Before
what
everybody's
happened
land
is
is
2 years
gone.
ago, I did a repair job on Hillside Point. And my understanding through CTEC and previous 15 years or 10 years of work is if we're doing repair work, we didn't need any permits. Because it's on the lake and this rock moves around, depending on how the sea conditions are and weather, it changes. So all we were doing was, it had eroded away the rock, the rocks had been overtopped by water and it eroded behind it. So we went there and we piled the rocks back up again that were there and added rock to the structure. And I was issued a stop work permit, or a stop work order, sorry. And Sheldon told me, he said, we don't have an issue with you doing the work, we just want you to get the permitting in place before, not after. So I want to make sure that I have it in place before we start work this way.
So if the message from council to Michelle when she calls is that we don't have a problem with it, unless it's on Crown land, that you're able to move forward, then Crown should be able to give you what you
They'll
need.
want a letter in writing from us, though.
Yeah.
It's past 11:45. We have another meeting at 11:45. I believe
And
that
I
Michelle
mean, I don't
wants-
think we can resolve it today, but I just want to make sure that we get,
Yeah,
Michelle and
they're
Wolf
working
and
on
Jay,
it
that
right
we
now.
start moving towards it before winter hits so that we know what, or I know what we need to do to move it forward.
I lived on the lake. It's number one. You want to get this done.
Yeah,
If it's my property, I'd be worried terribly.
And with
It's
the amount of
eroding
damage
my
this year
property.
from the high water, there's a lot of people that are.
So let's get
This
this going.
thing though, with the permits and that, well, we have been told and told and told by Crown, yeah, do what you want, it's not a problem. And our lawyers, if you don't own the land, you can't do it. You know, and it's the kind of deal that basically our lawyer says, don't do it, so we don't do it. But I mean, somewhere along the line, this has got to get fixed up because
but it's like,
land is gonna keep disappearing and,
But it's like Jeff says, this is a chicken and egg, and I
Yep.
think we've got to take a stance here because people are losing their property, and I think that we need
Well, this
to just
going
say.
back to 2010 when that.
We won't get an answer today.
Yeah.
Let Michelle get going on that, and we'll get, at the next meeting, bring this up again, Michelle, please, if you have information for us. And
Thank you for your
hopefully,
time.
and you know what, the next meeting is still on our council, right?
Yeah, the
25th of
25th.
October, so we should be able to help you out then. And if not,
It's
the
gonna be
new
a
council,
long meeting.
the new council would have to get it for you the next
All right,
meeting.
thank you.
Talk to you
Thanks
later.
for your time.
If we have questions and that, we'd like to call on you too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So at 11:45, we have Allison Breger, Sedem Funding. Is she here?
I gra- Yeah. I grabbed the key.
She is online.
No,
She's online?
Okay,
Yeah.
I give them pricing.
You've been working with,
I'll work for you.
okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
With this one here, you know about this one too?
Yes,
Okay.
we worked with Allison through Sedem, so she conducted the feasibility study on the campground for us.
Okay.
So she's just going to be presenting the results today.
Allison, you still have your computer muted if you want to take it off.
it's okay
Oh,
now.
okay, no.
Oh, there you are. Hello, Allison. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you for having me.
We also are limited to 10 minutes, but we'll give you a little bit longer today. So just try and make it as brief as you can. It looks very interesting. I hope everybody's had a good look at this already, but it looks interesting from what I've read. Go ahead.
For sure. Stephanie, I had passed you or emailed to Michelle a quick PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if you want to share that with council. The report was done and we had the three distinct component or three sections of the report. Section 1, which was the case study review of existing municipally owned campgrounds. Section 2, which explored different campground ownership models. And the third section, which assessed the three sites that were identified by council. So in the first section, in the case study review, I reached out, I did a little bit of online research first and checked what was available online for different municipally owned campgrounds. Travel Manitoba has a great website that identifies a number of municipally owned campgrounds. So I reached out to over 20 campgrounds by email and phone and by going to the campsites. In the end, I summarized 1, 2, 3. Sorry, now I summarized 9 of them. There were other ones that just never got back or responded or did not provide enough information to include them in the study. There was also a really good study that was done in 2015. It was economic impact and trend analysis of the Canadian camping industry. So this report was also used in our study as well. And they looked at campgrounds throughout the entire country and then broke it down into provinces, talking about they broke it into municipally run campgrounds and they broke it down into private campgrounds, and then they had some information in there as well, almost looking at a lot of the same things that our study looked at as well. So that's kind of the research component of it. And in the campground, in section 1 of the report, we looked at who the ownership was, when it was established, how many spots each of the campgrounds had, how long they operated, the booking system that was used, how they were maintained and operated, the cost of each campsite for the sites, whether it was serviced or unserviced, and how they marketed the sites. Basically, the summary of everything, what I tried to look more at the ownership in the RM end of things. Many of the campgrounds had no idea when they were established, and that seemed to be a question that threw a lot of them. I don't know, it's always been around, or it's been on the assessment record since. Some of them had been recently expanded. They knew when they'd been expanded, but not necessarily when they'd been established. We looked at capacity or how many sites they had at the campgrounds and which ones were serviced or unserviced. There is a summary chart in the report that kind of outlines what we heard from the municipalities. Looked at the date of operations. The date of operation was fairly consistent throughout the campgrounds that we talked to, as well as the campground study across Canada for Manitoba. Basically, it looks like it's around May long weekend until Thanksgiving. Some of them are opened a little bit earlier, some of them a little bit later, but primarily it looked like it was about 157 days was the campground across Canada study. That's what they found. In terms of booking systems, most of them used an online service. A few of them still used the call the RM, and we've got a scribbler in here and we'll write down your booking. The online booking systems, there are a number of them. The most popular booking system was campgroundreservation.ca. It was interesting. It seemed as though each municipality had worked out their own deal with the booking system as to how much they would book. Some of them were a $5 fee, some of them were $5.25, but the amount or whatever they charged for their booking fee varied from municipality to municipality. Overall, none of the campground, all of them were happy with the booking system that they had, whether it was campgroundreservation.ca, if it was CampSpot, or if it was just calling into the municipality. The average costs are included in there as well. In terms of marketing a municipal campground, every single municipality I talked to recognized that as a shortfall and that additional marketing should be done, and they didn't do enough marketing. Or a lot of them noted that if they had just established the campground or if they'd expanded, then they did a lot of marketing in the beginning, and it kind of let the marketing component lapse. So that snapshot kind of gives you an idea of what exists in terms of municipal campgrounds and how many sites they have. We asked them for some recommendations or if they had any cautionary notes that they'd like to pass along. One of them was very emphatic about the concerns that they'd had with their campground from drinking and having water and it being a safety or liability issue. And they had a drowning there, and they had issues with people drinking on the waterfront or on the beach outside of hours and not having security or staff. They have since then hired somebody to do security and walk along the beach, but they're mentioning it as a cautionary note that counts, something that you would want to consider so that you can troubleshoot for that potential issue before you get into it. A lot of them noted that you want to make sure that whatever site you pick, you have room for future expansion. Some of them said, we can't expand anymore. This is the space we have and there's nowhere to really go. There was a cautionary note about not doing seasonal campgrounds because you don't get the same economic spin-offs. People will book the campground site for the entire year, but they'll only come out on the weekends. Whereas if you book week to week, then your people are coming and staying for the entire week. They did have a combination, but they found that it worked better that was their cautionary note, was not to have seasonal sites, but rather to book it out week per week. The other comment that came up fairly frequently was that camping and pool or swimming lessons go really well together, and bookings increased when there were swimming lessons associated with the week of the bookings. The report goes on and it does identify each of the campgrounds and goes into a bit more detail for each of the campgrounds that were contacted. The second section of the report looks at the different ownership models, and the three that were identified in the RFP were a private ownership model, which means the municipality maintains control and runs the campground and looks after everything. The second was, the private is when, I misspoke, the public is when the municipality maintains ownership and does run the campground and looks after everything in terms of operating costs, maintenance, booking, and any future expansions or the amenities that go along with it. The private model would have the municipality establishing the campground and then selling it off to a private owner. And the public-private split would look at having the municipality retain ownership, but hire somebody to manage the campground. A number of the reports that I looked at in terms of the public note that public or municipally run campgrounds often have less amenities or services, but they usually are cheaper, and the municipality has the control to build the campground into and ensure that it works with other services that are being provided within the municipality. For example, if you were to look at the site where the RM office is, there's an adjacent landowner that's interested in developing a campground. So there is that potential to partner if the municipality retains ownership. Municipal campgrounds are often less expensive or costly to the person coming in. It allows the municipality to maintain ownership and to maintain control over the site and how it is developed and the types of services that are there. In the private model, some of the strengths, more amenities to the campground, and the owner and operator is responsible for all the servicing and all of the maintenance, so that basically the municipality gets the benefits of having the campground, but they don't have any of the headaches that come there along. I mean, the downside of that is that you don't get the ability to control what goes on in the campground or the services or amenities. The public-private split would mean that the municipality would build the campground and they would lease it to an individual landowner. I mean, in this model, you'd still get the revenue stream coming in to the municipality. You'd have the benefits of having the campground, but you wouldn't be responsible for the maintenance and operating of the campground. For the weaknesses in there, typically a private will want to increase their return on investment, so the sites are typically more expensive for the public or people coming in. There was an interesting study that was done in the Lakefield campground in Ontario, and they were looking at different ownership models there. They noted that third-party management often there was the potential for the third party to leave prematurely, which then leaves the RM at a bit of a, well, what do we do at this point type phase. But they also noted that often these agreements get cut short. This did come up from one of the campgrounds that I spoke to as well, saying that in order for you to get a third party management in, you often need to have enough sites so that it is feasible for a private person to come in and make a profit off of it. And this campground had, the one that made that note had, I think they were at 22 sites, of which 4 were not serviced. So anything that's going to bring in a private, they have to be sure that they're going to make the return on their investment. So they will be looking at making a profit in there. There are other models of ownership that could be explored too. There's the nonprofit model, in which a nonprofit board, this could be your Lions Club, it could be your CDI, could manage the campground, and it would almost be at an arm's length to the municipality. That again comes with some challenges, because then you've got a nonprofit that you need to keep running, and you're looking at more volunteers to run a campground, which can be challenging. It's hard to get volunteers. I'm sure you know that. It's hard to get volunteers everywhere, but it is another model of ownership that could be explored if you had a group of people that were interested and wanted to take this on. Another model that came up was the cooperative model. So you would run the campground like a co-op, and there are a number of different ways to do this. But basically, people would have a share or a stake in the campground. The municipality could also do the cooperative model as well. If you want more information on the potential or option of doing it as a cooperative model, we can map that out a little more, but I didn't go that much into detail about it. There was fairly somebody who had written quite a bit in RV Dreams magazine, and he was very much in favor of doing campgrounds as a cooperative. And in that point, you would own your right to camp there, but not necessarily your spot. So it would be run a little bit differently. The final section of the report looks at the 3 sites that were identified. So site 1 is the area by the beach house. The area there is owned by Manitoba Hydro. I did reach out to Manitoba Hydro, and in July, I filled out a secondary application to see if they would be willing to lease the property or if they would be willing to sell a portion of the property. I have not heard anything back from Manitoba Hydro, and I have followed up with them. This site has a lot of advantages to it, in that there is the beach right there. It's already developed. There's a road that could be used to come in there. It has the potential to develop the beach house. It's right across from some of the businesses and shops, which make it a prime location to have some economic spin-off. The site has the swimming area there. So there are advantages to it. Some of the challenges are most of the sites are looking for RV sites and RV pull-through sites. So there just isn't really the space in there to be able to develop that property, it would be challenging to develop the property. There's also the existing residences that are around. And another cautionary note that I heard from a municipality that's not on this study was campgrounds do raise concerns with adjacent landowners. It doesn't matter where you are, people are going to complain about the noise, about the transient population, about people coming through there, and there just are concerns and the need for security. A lot of those houses there don't have fences in the back, so they would basically have campers in their backyard, which I can see you getting, there being a potential for some kickback from the adjacent landowners. Site 2 is by the RM office right now. This site is nice and open. It does allow for the potential of expansion in this site. It does lack some tree coverage, which would be nice, and it's farther from the businesses. You would have to cross the highway to access the boat launch, the museum, the walking trails, or the beach as well. So there are some drawbacks on that. I mean, the lack of trees can be addressed by planting trees, creating a walking trail or a path to get to the amenities is always an option, but it's just one of those potential concerns that should be identified at the beginning. This site is easy to develop. You can definitely do pull-through sites, and there is the potential to partner with the landowner that does want to develop a campground in the adjacent property. Plus, there are no nearby residents that might object to it. I did reach out to Manitoba Highways or Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure, as any of the campsites would be accessed off of number 11. They had initially told me that they liked the boat launch site and the beach site best. And I reached back out to them because that was not what I was expecting, and I am still waiting to hear back from them on that. I'm wondering if they thought we were going to try to put a new access in on the 11, which is why they did not choose that site. The final site is by the boat launch. It's a property that is owned by Manitoba Housing. So there would be some need to purchase the land or to lease the land from Manitoba Housing. And there is the issue of access and getting to the property, as well as having existing residences around there. The site does have natural amenities such as the boat launch. It has some trees, it has the existing pathway and the museum there. So I guess the summary of this section is that there are lots of advantages and disadvantages to each site. In my opinion, it's probably easiest to develop the parcel that the RM already owns. There could be negative perceptions from the community if Manitoba Housing is selling off land that is currently owned by Manitoba Housing. So it could start off with some negative press as well. So that is a summary of the report. The report does have additional information. So there's your summary of the report, and I'm not sure if there are questions or concerns or different areas that should be explored.
Thanks very much, Allison. Diane has a question.
I just wanted to point out on that, the site by the boat launch, Manitoba Housing has some property in there, but the property that's closest to the walkway is Crown land. It's not all Manitoba Housing. I think it's probably about 100 feet wide by 400 feet long. I'd have to go back and take a look. So there's a combination of two property owners in there, plus private ownership. And I think that in looking at the sites within the community, community members would be a lot more comfortable with seasonal, where they're not seeing a change happening every week with different campers. They actually get to know the seasonal campers. They become part of the community, much like what happened in the Pinawa area. Whereas the site in the back, I have to agree with you, the site that the RM owns, plus there's an adjacent landowner who is looking at development, is probably the preferable option, because there is a series of walking trails that could be developed that could connect everybody to the beach and to the businesses. So that one, to me, is if we're looking at a combination of seasonal and overnight, would be the preferable site would not be welcomed in the community, I don't think, to have overnight camping on a regular basis.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay, yeah, it's Mac here. What, I agree with what Diane is saying. The unfortunate part of it is pretty much all of the campgrounds that have been established here have been flipped to, or that may have started as overnight campgrounds or short-term campgrounds have all been flipped to seasonal. And that is one of the big issues that we have. There is no place for anybody to come to spend, 2 or 3 or 4 nights, whatever kind of a thing, and it makes it extremely difficult. How do you bring in tourists when you've got all your sites already blocked on a seasonal basis? Might as well sell them the land and build a cottage and away you go kind of a thing, right? It just would be nice to be able to have, even if it was seasonal, that there's something in there that requires a certain number of the lots be kept as overnight lots so that we do have overnight lots available. And I'll just give you the example of myself, trying to find spots in the provincial campgrounds in the summertime is difficult. There's some of them that you can get between Monday and Friday, but if you're going to do anything that's Friday to Monday, forget it, they're booked up. And when you go into a lot of these campgrounds, it's like you say, people have blocked them for the whole summer and there's nobody around through the week. They show up Friday night and they're gone Sunday or Monday night kind of a deal. But it's a lot now that you can't take and use as something to go in to do it. So however we do it, I think we have to be careful so that we're still catering maybe to both, but at least to the overnighters that want to come in. Used to be it was all overnighters. Now it's more seasonal than it is overnighters, and the overnighters are having a hard time finding places to go.
Thanks. If there's no more questions, thank you very much for your time, Allison. I appreciate your input.
Very good report.
Yeah, do you have any other comments, Allison?
No, and I mean, that is something definitely to keep in mind, is to explore the possibility of doing a combination of seasonal and overnight sites as well. And I will keep you posted if I hear back from Manitoba Hydro or Manitoba Transportation. Hydro, I didn't hold out much hope for, but I thought I'd try anyway.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good report.
We'll break for lunch and we have a meeting again at 12:30. So we're gonna be back for 12:30 or 22:01.
Michelle, did you have something? Yes.
Who knows, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think she covered all the basics. I just wanted to remind council that we do have some funds that we have through the DF. What is it?
FDFO.
That has to be spent by March 31st. And I spoke to our representative from SEDEM this morning, and she indicated that because this was a trial run for SEDEM to handle the funding for this FDEFO program. So this is the final year. There won't be any extensions on spending the money. So we have 38,000.
Maybe we can have another discussion after lunch, or not right after lunch. I'm not sure. I'll just ask you this question. Your report and Jay's report is next, so maybe you can come back when we're doing that. But we also have in camera usually we do that right after lunch. We're gonna do the in camera first, and then we can have your reports and maybe call Michelle back at that time.
Yes, because I need to know what the funding is for specifically, because the community also
You're
has.
trying to get that question in right now.
Yes, yeah.
We'll come back after.
Take a look at
Can we
both.
do this? Can we do your reports before in camera,
Yeah,
or should we do the in camera first?
well, the 12:30 in camera.
That's in camera?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do the in camera stuff. So I don't know, somewhere after 1 o'clock.
Yeah, if it's whether it's in.
You're coming to the in camera too?
For that one.
Okay, so we don't even have to call you back. When we get out of camera, we'll finish this discussion.
Okay.
And then it'll be the CAO and Public Works Managers reports.
Okay.
And whatever else we've got. It's gonna be a late meeting. Anyway, thanks. So we'll break for lunch and we'll be back we have to be back at.
12:30-ish? Yeah.
save the insurance. Lucky to be, we weren't hurt. Drainage works in all areas is going on.
What was I supposed to close it up?
No. No.
We have 2 machines of our own on the go daily.
I didn't hear that the recording came back on. Is it on?
It says, you know what, just to make sure, it is recording, but it didn't say it out loud, but that's because I think I had the noise, the speaker on a different setting. But you know, we'll just in case.
Yeah, it says
This conference will now be recorded.
So they need to have a session.
Procedure. No.
See, you're welcome, Steve.
So with the drainage works this year, we kind of went away from schedule. I think I said that in a couple of reports. With the weather we had to switch things around to worst, you know, catch the worst ones first. And so any order we had in mind last summer for this year's works changed entirely. We've had some people that were upset with that, but that's how we have to do things.
I must say though, Jay, seeing the work that the guys have been doing out around my area, they're very impressed. Had a lot of positive comments come back.
Well, in a certain area, we had one guy, it was end of day and Kevin showed up at a culvert that's plugged, but we're gonna get the big machine to go there. And the person that saw Kevin stop there thought he was not doing his job and just killing time and left it, should have done the job. Well, it was end of day for one thing. And we're assessing. So comments I got from this one person were pretty negative, but it doesn't know the whole story.
Yes.
And I know where it's coming. So I took that with a grain of salt. Snow equipment's coming into the shop as of today. Get everything repaired and ready. I'm sure it's going to be another fun winter. Seasonal staff, I'm going to keep on for another couple of weeks. 3, Evan's done as of Friday, so that'll be the 4th. He's finished. It was a good season with everybody there. Sadly, well, I don't know yet, but some of them are, I think Sue's last day will be October 28th, I believe. She's retiring, and there could be a couple more coming up in the next year or so for the seasonal, so that'll be hard to replace.
And Dave told me he was going back to the mine.
And Dave, yeah, he put in his 2 weeks notice. He's actually back for a 3rd week to give us a hand, and he's going to a gold mine in Elo, Ontario. Just a personal choice.
What's Dave's last name? Can
John.
you say that? Johnson.
No, he was a great guy to work with all around.
He was a good worker too.
Well, I guess he
Always
makes
on
double the
time
money at the
and
mill.
he's
No doubt his stuff.
Yeah, very nice guy to work with. And
And
he
he-
kept things pretty
He
light.
said that he was very happy here and he did like the job.
Yeah.
But it was just a question of money.
Yeah.
He makes double the money at the mine.
Yeah, that's all it was. And I extended a welcome back in a couple of years. If
Good.
he's,
Yeah, he was saying-
mind.
He wants to come
And
back.
we have an opening,
Can't
I'd
imagine.
take him back in a heartbeat. Because right now, you're not going to get guys that stay decades. You're looking at 5 years at best for many positions. So, well, if we can get somebody good for 2, 3 years, 4 years, I'll take it.
Good.
Because Dave's position to fill is going to be very tough to do.
I have a question, Jay. I talked to Rick Riviera about the Maple Creek Maple Creek.
Oh, at the co-op there, yeah?
Yeah. He's asked about whether how we could help, we can help damage around, or what do you call it?
We wouldn't
How
get
can we do
any
that?
funding, we wouldn't get any funding for that through DFA because you only bring your site back to what it was, which we did. You know, they had asked us by email to take the sandbags out, which I guess is the right decision because it's messy. But maybe that should have stayed on if they're already asking for it.
I wonder if we should put clay around it, like we did at,
Well, we can't, it's private. Private co-op.
okay, yeah.
We could do the work if they had the money or a combination, I'm sure.
They're not on, they don't own that land.
No,
It's ours.
yeah, but we don't go around helping other people. So that would be the- I'm not saying no to helping them, but we didn't budget for this. They asked us to take the sandbag away. And now they're asking for help with something permanent, which if they join up to the water system, if they do, which I'm hoping that might be next year, then they wouldn't need that pump there at all. That would come up.
So when you say it's private land, it's actually RM land.
It's
Is
farmland,
it
but it's
co-op?
private co-op.
Is it
Is that
hydro?
like the trailer park?
I think that'll be, I'm not sure if it's RM or hydro, right? I think it's hydro, but
Yeah,
Most of the water is probably
I think it's
hydro,
hydro.
or they might be
What was
just
it,
on the edge of it.
to dike around it, this was clay, like clay we used at Capri.
that clay has gone to the landfill now for cover. Probably $10,000 to $12,000
Plus manpower.
for something that might come out next year if they hook up to the water system.
And what if they say, oh, with the water coming up and everything. Oh, it's supposed to be receding days this fall.
Well, maybe it can go into next year's budget.
Oh, it's
I
going
know
down
it's
a
not
lot.
gonna help if they flood it out again for next week.
Then it would be another DFA claim. Right?
I think we have to handle it at the time. Like, 'cause
I
we
think,
don't have a crystal ball, we can't.
When do we have to make an extension for time? Is it 3:30 or 4 o'clock?
I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that if we let it go and it floods again, BFA is gonna handle that. Then if they join up to the system, that's the time we build the dike. Or help them build the dike. But meantime, if they get flooded out next spring, the DFA claims.
Yeah, but hopefully by next spring we can get them out there.
Well, we did pretty
That's
good
it.
this year.
That's the hope. And we all know, we get our report from KGS end of the month, don't we?
Water Services Board, it
26.
was supposed to be actually last week, but she got delayed, so it's either this week or next week, but I'll have the report for the cost to bring that.
Did you get anything else, Jane?
Well, tell them we're gonna look at it.
Yeah.
We'll monitor.
I mean, it wouldn't be off the board to help it, again, but
Yeah.
if we go through a repeat of spring of 22 next year, then that'll be more claims and more help, more headaches and more.
If something happens, we'll be Johnny on this spot to help.
You bet, yeah.
You gotta be careful with that.
I don't have much to go.
I think we responded quite well to the
Last-
water aviation.
Yes, we did, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
so similar situation.
And then Martin Drive, we had
I
a
really
visit
think
there
it has to be done.
last week, I believe it was, and there's some stuff we'll have to address on our potential property. There's walkways that lead to the lake. Yeah, and with Barb going there, she's gonna look into a couple of things for safety reasons for now. That could be addressed, but dollar wise, if we're looking at that whole stretch, if the RM commits or however that goes, that's what you're talking.
Well, maybe if we can get one company to do the whole stretch, we can get a price break somewhere.
Well, that's why I was gonna talk to Wolf a little bit.
Yeah.
He's been doing that for years. Does pretty good work.
Yep.
If somebody's already working down there, Randy and Anna, Wolf, maybe that's the perfect time to address at least our walkways that need addressing.
And they've already done that one property, 10, 12 years ago, I think it was, and it's held up beautifully.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's very
It's good
obvious
work.
what work down there.
Randy's also called me about it and wanted a meeting, and I phoned back to schedule a meeting with him, but he hasn't called me back yet, so.
Yeah,
He's the other contractor that is doing work on the other side, I think the more northerly road, is that a T or Martin?
Martin.
So
that's
the T is the ones that they're trying
I
to,
think, yeah, at the lake front, Randy and Anna have to the east,
yeah.
on the Tia, and Wolf. I believe,
Oh, yeah, it's a bit, I don't know if it's north or east there.
Yeah, see, it's
Yeah,
that Martin Drive, that goes up and then the T is this way and Martin's that
Okay.
way.
So Martin's already getting looked after, but that's where they're having the problems is the Tia, because they don't know whose land, if it's Crown or ours.
On Martin.
That's where you guys are
there's a
looking at.
street that never was passed, so regardless, it's something that has to be addressed. I don't know.
It's gotta be at least a 20-foot drop there.
Probably
At least.
50?
But you
I'd
know,
say
the worst
20 at
of
a
it-
Tia.
The worst of it is that the water has done this to it. So this little bit of land up here is only about this big. You can't stand on it. Anybody stands on it.
Well, it's twofold at a Tia. If you go to the beach and look up, there's clay layers. And when you have a high water table, that water seeps out at the clay layer, so that weakens it. And then it's getting weakened at the bottom from the lake.
And
So
they've
you
also
get
got
two
the artesians
Problems. Yeah.
coming out, like at Lester Beach, they've got that. Isn't that problem as well? Work already?
The only,
It's just a walkway.
the only thing moving forward with lake problems, they're always dropped when the water, when the lake goes down, everybody forgets about the lake problem. So that's the time you should be doing the work.
Exactly.
The last 2 years would have been ideal for lake.
Well, I really
And
think
no one
that,
wants to talk about it when the lake's.
No, because they're
you know, what are you
enjoying the
talking
beach.
and the worst of it is that if we could get something accomplished like at this time of year, at least they could work on it in the winter. Because they can't do that in the summertime.
And I think that's what Wolf was asking about, like, you know, I shouldn't speak against the Gabion baskets, but I've never liked them.
No,
They come apart and there's wire like Wolf was talking
Yeah.
about that, you know, can
Hurt you.
feet, yeah.
no, I've
And they
heard
do fall
neighbor
apart.
has-
The structure, the sand around it, more gold, they fall. They fall apart. And boulders generally, the worst case, they settle and you might have to add some stuff to it.
But they last quite a few years too.
Yeah.
Oh, they do.
And then if they last 20 years, we can afford to go ahead and put them in again.
Yeah.
Well,
But they do look good. They look good. They look professional.
What?
Yeah.
The
Just
Gabions?
The Gabions, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Gabions are not very, they're not very reliable. That's the problem.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Okay.
The project that the RM had undertaken years ago as a local improvement
Sleepy Hollow,
up at the beaches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How,
that,
how is that project?
that was horrible.
It's
That was-
horrible?
Well, after the project was completed, I had to go in there for a part of it with our excavator and fix it up.
Is that at the end of Sunrise?
Yeah,
yeah,
and
they could all.
Michelle could speak to the other portions that didn't work very well.
And
The
the
job
problem,
itself
the
was
province
okay.
came in and did some, they did some restoration work along there. And all that was good for was the ATVs that like to play on the beach. They came down and they just wrecked them. It's terrible.
I don't remember
I
that.
don't remember that
I
either.
guess
There
It was about 10, 12 years ago.
the RM can't afford to do all of the shoreline, and that could be coming up.
They
with
hired
public
people from
reserves that
Seguin.
are coming our way.
This was in 2008, 2009?
Yeah,
When it was undertaken, but each of the landowners had contributed, had to pay
Oh, yes.
their share, but was it a worthwhile project or has it held up?
It's
What
held
did
up
they do?
not too bad.
There were problems because unfortunately the engineer who was responsible for the entire project passed away. And so then people had come to the RM for the RM to fix things because things went sideways.
And that's when our public works went into.
That's
Okay, I remember
Yeah.
that now.
So in my mind, the stone was too small for the most part.
Was that the Gabions?
No,
No.
it's crushed rock, the most part.
Just dropped on the bank.
But when you end a project, that's what's happening. There's some folks in Traverse Bay on Rem Acres that did I think a pretty good job of shoreline work, but where their property ended, they went a little bit past. And that's where the problem starts. If you don't end it at the right spot, gets in behind it, all the work you did just collapses. So that's key is.
there was some kind of a drainage ditch down there too on Rim Acres.
Yeah, we did some work there too.
What else you got there, Jake?
That's her.
Thanks very much for your report. Giselle?
Whew. Okay. So the Ward 4 Lagoon project, when I wrote this report, I had attended a bi-weekly site meeting and Jay and I also attended another one yesterday. So the project has not progressed as expected. They are, but following this meeting, the meeting we had yesterday was a better situation, but it still won't be done until 2023. Unfortunately. I did address the fact that it affects our borrowing bylaw. Because the interest rate now has gone from 4%, and right now it's 5.25%. What's it going to be?
I thought we were locked in with what we had.
Well, the borrowing bylaw that was approved was your interim preliminary bylaw. So municipal board approves that. You generally, you put your interest rate higher than what the current rate is so that you have some room. But when you're done the project, if you don't need all the money, you do an amending bylaw to, that's, I think it was for 450,000. So let's say you only need 300,000, you would amend the bylaw, because once you have all your numbers in place and you decide what you're gonna take from your reserves and other funding, then you have to amend it, and then that's where you would put your actual interest rate.
But the rate from the bank has not changed.
Yes,
It has. So
Yes.
it's a,
yeah, because we weren't locked in, the debenture was not issued. The debenture doesn't get issued until you finish the project.
Oh, I thought it was issued as soon as you start borrowing.
No, no.
Well, in a nutshell, that's what it is, issued is when you start borrowing. Right now, it's basically,
We haven't borrowed the money yet.
exactly.
But I thought we were, okay, just till the end of the year before.
Okay, so I'll just expand on that. So I did consult with our provincial finance officer about this borrowing. So what he said was, as long as the proposed payment, which was 80,000 for the two, because there was a double, it was one for the boat launch project and the and this project, the lagoon. So there was 80,000 was the payment. So you do put that in half, so it'd be 40,000 for the payment. So as long as your payment doesn't increase, then you don't need to go back to have a public hearing. You can move ahead with issuing the debenture by amending your bylaw with the exact amount that you need to borrow with the current interest rate. And then municipal board usually will approve it. Because as long as you don't go higher than what you had said your payment would be, then you would get approval. So that's how that works. It's,
Lots of moving parts.
and we
a lot of,
have
yeah.
we asked for an extension from ISIP?
So the good news with ISIP is that they have not completed the contribution agreement yet. So when I contacted ISIP, she said, well, you don't have to do any amendments because we don't have an agreement in place yet. So she said, why don't you just say December 31st, 2023? And that's what I requested that.
Okay.
So that agreement there'll be nothing, we don't need to change that agreement. But further to that, the other issue is the RM Lactobani. As you know, they gave us notice, 12 months notice to end our current agreement. And if you look on their website, they do have their council meeting highlights. And I did speak with the CAO there. They would like to start charging their RM $50,000 a year, as well as 50% of their maintenance costs, beginning January 1st. My argument would be, it's like, well, you gave us 12 months notice, right, to April. But I did, at the meeting yesterday, I did say, this is costing the ratepayers money, more interest and more payments to the RLAC body, which we were not counting on. So that was driven pretty hard to them to know that this is costing us extra money.
Yeah, you're like a little bit over $4,000 a month.
But if they had given us to April, how can they turn around now and say as of
Well, then,
January?
so when I talked to the CAO, she said, well, a letter is coming. Well, I haven't received a letter yet. So my response back in writing would be, well, you gave us 12 months notice, so really you can't start, and we have to enter into a new agreement if you want to start charging us $50,000 a year and negotiate the terms of that agreement. So they're saying that they want to do this, but they haven't come to us and had a conversation. We really need to have a joint meeting and lay it all out as to how we're going to do
How
it.
far along would we be in December?
They figured they'll be able to work until the end of the month, this month, and then that's it.
So we could actually start using it.
No, they will not be done. The truck,
They can't do any
They
work
won't
on
be
it.
starting work on it until April or
they
May.
won't be able to finish the base, what do you call that, the clay layer?
The liner.
The liner, they won't be able to finish the liner. The liner has to have, has to be compacted to a certain amount and has to go with a sleeve test.
And they can't do any of that in the winter.
No,
Can't be frozen.
You get a good test.
no. So we're really, winter's coming, so that is really what's holding this
Is
project
the
back.
clay on site?
The clay is on site.
think a portion of the problem, like we discussed yesterday, was on Chabot's side, just a lack of employees on site.
Yes,
You know, they could argue that, you know, everyone's having the same issue, so, you know, how far can you push that? They had 6 different guys, and I'm not sticking up for them, but
They were
went through
finding
all the
boulders
different
too
people.
that had to come out, right?
That stuff, that to me, for that equipment, that's on site, that's peanuts.
That's
They don't
true.
show up with our
Right.
small stuff and deal with some. So that's the unfortunate part. How do you argue that during COVID times, or all the outcome of it?
right.
And this is just me asking because I don't know anything about this stuff, but is everything like normal right now? I know they're pulling boulders out and
Or
they
as
go
far as-
deeper. Like, is everything gonna be okay, I guess is what I'm asking.
It will be okay. So a lot of things looked better yesterday. They were making progress with the cell not being so wet. So they had made a lot of progress.
And I heard the other thing was that there might be springs that are filling it again or something?
Well, that's, I mean, that was the surface water. It doesn't seem to be as bad as what,
It's probably about 75% less than it was,
It was.
at our last
Yeah.
meeting.
But
Yeah.
that could be just because it's actually drying out finally.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Water
just been
coming off that bedrock.
weakening.
right? But they were advised that there is a clause in the contract about liquidated damages, so much per day, 2,500 per working day. That was really, that was really impressed upon that this is part of the contract, so, I should have gone over really well.
Yeah, it was taken fairly well.
Yep, yep. If they don't get it done in time.
If they don't get it done.
Yeah,
They
but I
had
thought-
60 working days. So they were on day 46 yesterday.
And it's how many working days?
60 was in a week.
Wasn't the initial in-service date supposed to be October 7th?
Which I don't understand that because the start date was August 2nd. If you take 60 working days, it brings them to October 31st.
Okay,
So October 31st should have been the last
Date
day,
set.
right?
I think October 7th was the agreed upon date, if I remember right, for the likelihood of heavy frost.
oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, overall, I mean, it's going to be delayed. We have to accept that fact. But they were advised of the cost to the RM, how much more it's going to cost us.
Has
So
all
we have
of the controversy and people going to the site, has that delayed the process at all?
No, maybe
well, it's
initially.
cost a bunch of money already.
Yeah.
So the other thing to do with, I did reach out to the town of Lactobani to see if they would accept our lagoon wastes, just in case the agreement with the RM didn't work out. And I know that would likely be a lot further distance for the septic haulers to bring the waste, but essentially it was, yeah, we'll, consider your request, but they want it in writing. So I think it likely would be a positive response if we can't work anything out with the RM. So that's an option as well. We also attended the surface discharge study meeting yesterday. Jay and I did a conference call and it went well. I mean, they hope to have everything done by December 16th. We did learn a little bit about the current discharge.
There is no current discharge.
Well, no, the plan. So we've been getting mixed messages. One says, no, it's gonna be discharged right to the creek. But in fact, it goes,
It's about 500
it's
meters.
about 500 meters. It goes into a little ditch first, and then it goes to a settling pond. And then it follows a drainage swale to the creek. So
But
it's
it's still going pretty much straight line to the creek,
500 meters,
half a kilometer.
right?
But it's going through different terrains and different filters
Yes,
on its way there.
yeah.
Yeah, but
To me, that's still a surface discharge. Like,
Still, I guess surface discharge, but the intent of it was my understanding, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, was basically like irrigation pipe put out so that there would be 2 or 3 pumps pushing water into that irrigation pipe, and it would just be draining into the
well, it
ground
was
around it kind of a deal, really towards the
clarified
forest.
yesterday that we go into this ditch
500 meters.
first.
And one thing I'd like to know is, you know, if it could stay that way, not saying it will, you could throttle back the pumps. You know, instead of a full discharge in 2 weeks or whatever the permit says, that you could change that permit or license and pump longer.
You pump it longer.
Which
yeah.
is an option.
Slower.
Which is
Slower,
an option.
I thought it was
Well, do it with
being
1 pump
sprayed.
instead of 2 or whatever. kind of thing.
I thought it was a spray discharge. not
Well,
a pump.
like I said, my thought or my understanding of it would be like irrigation pipe was put out and it would just run through the irrigation pipe. And the irrigation pipe was full of holes, so it just actually drains.
Drains right into the ground and then
ground.
it goes through the ground and.
Yeah, and into
basically
the,
gets to
into the,
And this is why we hire professional engineers to look after these problems for us.
So,
Like,
right,
yeah,
so
different
so
stories.
we'll get the study. It's just,
Yeah.
to me, it was educational to learn exactly how the discharge is going to be, because Jay and I were getting conflicting responses. I was under the impression it was going to be piped straight to the creek, and that's not the case. Period. So I was, and the fact that there's settling ponds before, like, that to me is even more. So,
Better,
yeah, it's better.
it's filtering.
Right, okay, anyway, so we'll have the report by December. And the water meter project, I have provided a summary of costs to St. George Co-op. And I also submitted an interim claim to Water Services Board for the water meter and meter reader expense. So we've already paid out that money, so I asked to get our share back. So, and a wildlife extension project, again, Water Services Board has extended the timeline to October 21st, approximately. Way to Go Consulting is working on a revised rate study. So we're trying to get all the data together for him. Disaster financial assistance, we did complete and submit the contribution agreement for the mitigation and preparedness program. And we also, as Jay noted, we attended that Martin Drive and Lakeview Road to look at those, the erosion at the lake levels. And the Power Drive land sale, again, I met with legal yesterday to discuss that. And election, so. And I'll be attending a project management seminar on October 14th. That's it.
What is that, Michelle?
I'll move to,
I'll second.
Do we have to do Michelle Wosley's report too?
Yeah, Michelle I can go get her.
Or can we end these two and do her separately or? what?
well, I thought the administrative report resolution came, and we proposed it and seconded it. Then we got the reports and then we passed it.
Okay.
That seems to be what we've been doing recently.
But Michelle's coming to do a report.
Yes, so we can't,
So we'll wait for Michelle.
the resolution's there, but we can't vote on it yet. Is my understanding.
She's not really management, but
Is that not an administrative report?
I guess I guess EDO, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of, kind of.
Or she could just do a report. It
She
doesn't
could
have
just
to
do
be
a
like
Just
report.
bump it there.
It could
Any
just-
further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor, carried.
All right.
Well, so the report, just call it an update.
An update, there you go.
Is there an easy one we can get rid of here?
Is she coming right now?
Yeah. we'll
That's the plan.
go. We take a 5-minute break while we're waiting for Michelle. She can stop.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we've called the meeting to order again. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, I just came back because I understand Diane had some questions about the FUFO funding.
Yes, in relationship to the funding that was approved for the campground, did that include the feasibility study that?
No, the feasibility study was over and above the 38,000 we got for the campground.
Okay, so in my email from them this morning, because I asked them to spell it out, it says construction or infrastructure for the establishment of the future campground, and it's $38,000. So
Right.
that's the same 38, or is that a different?
That's the same 38. And then there's the 36.5 for the artist retreat. That's also under that same contract. But it has to flow through the St. George Community Club because it has to go through a francophone organization.
Oh,
And so the cost of the feasibility study itself, who covered that?
The dam did. That
Okay.
was over and above the 38.
Oh, okay, so that we aren't responsible for that. Okay, good.
so one of the concerns that I have is because there were some expectations, particularly with the artist residency or writer's residency, in that we had applied for other funding, which we didn't receive. We were going to apply for that new fund, which was due yesterday, but because the community club had to ask for the boom,
Yeah.
We didn't submit the application for the artist residency because we can't have two projects moving forward. So like I have my doubts that we can meet that March 23rd deadline.
March 31st.
March 31st. And then for the campground, there is also some things that need to be looked at because the 38 has to be spent before March 31st.
That's right. And what she suggested when I talked to her today is that if we're gonna do any upgrades to the property, that we do it before we put it out to tender. Because then it's public funds used on public property. And it also has to be, say if we're doing a washroom for the campground, it has to be something that's open to the public that anyone can access.
So would the construction of the road into that site qualify?
Yeah.
But it would have to be done now.
Basically, yeah.
Or before March 31st. Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
So how difficult would that be, Jason?
Does it
Well,
have to
without
be
any plan.
staggered? Yeah.
Pardon?
Without any plan, how do you build a road, like width and, like design wise? Can you get, I guess we're not far enough along on anything in order to move forward right now, are we? Like you could bring in materials for it or.
That's what I was just gonna ask. Perhaps
Can
can
you-
you start getting supplies?
Can you stockpile?
We could do that. I don't know how long the road is, so you'd have to figure that out as far as volumes. $30,000. Is that all of it that has, like they all,
38.
it's a lot of material.
So the road allowance that's there now, is that where we think the road should be?
Have we
that's-
decided where we want it to go?
Well, it has to be off Bovia Trail.
We have a driveway down the road that it could be stockpiled. And that could be determined after where the road's going. And it's not a big deal if you have to move it 500 feet this way or that way.
And there has to be drainage.
And that has to be licensed and that all takes time. Or part of the plan, so that would become a drainage plan, right?
Yeah.
When we do ditching, that's a license we have to get to do the ditching, but this
Yeah.
would become, well, either through KGS or Stantec or whomever would design the road and we'll build it to close to our standard.
Does the work have to be completed or just started?
I think if you expense the material, like by stockpiling it, that would qualify.
So then we could, figure out the gravel and if there's still money left, there's a culvert that would be needed or culverts depending on just even a quick look, erosion blanket could be purchased.
But then you're talking about these washrooms and then you've got to make out sites. I mean, that's going to be a
I
whole
think the
lot of money on
washrooms
top.
we would never be able to do that before March. Because we have to put that property up for sale and it would depend on whoever purchases it as to whether or not they even want to enter into an agreement with the municipality to do that.
I thought the municipality was going to have the campground like it would be a municipal campground.
I don't think we decided.
My question here is like, I know she was saying that there was different plans, there was 3 different sites, private, public, combination.
Combination.
We haven't decided any of that
No.
kind of stuff, right?
No,
But we've got the 38 grand sitting there that we need to spend, so it would make sense. Well, start stockpiling the material or whatever and spend the 38 grand so that at least that amount of material is sitting ready to go when we.
And where would you put that? Right in our property here?
Likely on further down.
At the far end,
Will they allow us to do
where
it?
it's higher.
Property.
As long as
Still our
it's
problem.
designated for that specific purpose.
So do you think we can spend the 38,000 stockpiling materials, culverts and?
Do you have any length of road in mind? Like where to on that site or?
But you'd have to have a site plan of where you
Yeah.
want the trailer sites to be, so you can make the road to be central.
We can figure that out. You can still all gravel the start.
What about a lot?
Well, we know how many acres we want
Yeah.
to
Main line over.
subdivide. Michelle would know that. The number of acres at the end that we're taking out is from the 80 to 60,
I believe so, right?
About 60.
Yeah, about 60.
about 60 acres. And the road pretty much runs on the edge of that 60 off Boothview Trail or
You would
further
run
down.
down the middle.
Our property line basically is the homeowner to the west.
Yes.
That fence line down his driveway is the edge of, our western edge of the property. This driveway is probably a couple hundred meters this way yet.
But your road would sort of have to be in the middle to accommodate people
Well, I
going
mean,
off into.
No,
where that drive-
you come off of the road and into your site, and then you make a turn, and then you start doing your rows for the trailers kind of a thing. But you still have to have an approachway to come in so that basically you can set up a dump tank or whatever the case might be. But that's got to be usually, or set up usually on the way in or out of the campground, so that, like, yeah, you're gonna have some space to run that. If you look at some of the pictures of that were included with the package, you can see how they've got them set up, and it, very simply, you could do something like that, square it off a little bit more or whatever, but.
The further you get to the east from that driveway on that property, it's getting to be lowland. So you'd be staying away from that anyway. That's the drain running through to St. George.
And
So you'd be
so
out from that.
this would be an opportunity for us to fix that drainage as well, because we have experienced some problems where we were flooding out at the creek at the other end, so.
But yeah, I think the problem to that, well, there's some maintenance to do through the creek. Some of it's on private property. And the culverts at the highway are the main problem. Through highways.
Off 11. Okay.
That was the big problem. They couldn't take that water that spring.
Well, there was
Easter
gas too.
weekend.
Yeah, they're plugged in.
So how close are we to being able to put up that property for sale, Michelle?
I've got the hydro documents now, and I have to send those to Mike McCandless. And then we have to get the, actually I have a call into community planning to find out about bringing the plans in to get the certificate of approval. And I haven't heard back from the dean yet, so. Because there's not always someone in that office.
no, there is.
Because we had talked about taking the sign that was over on the old RM site and putting it over here to see if there are some interested parties. Or can we do that now, or we'd rather wait till we get the approval?
But you don't have a title.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't sell anything until you had a title, until it was registered at Winnipeg Land Titles.
And that could be another month.
Is there any way that,
Can't
that
say
them can be
maybe, but-
informed of what we're going through at this point? Can maybe have that next year?
Can't, I have an email up on here because I asked them that question yesterday. And it says for both funds, it's 31st of March, and there are no extensions possible. What they want is to see a conceptual plan that would be for the artist residency. And as I explained, I really don't think that we'll be able to move forward with that because we had to prioritize, and the booms were considered to be the priority because DFA is insisting that, is it DFO or DFA?
It's,
DFO.
not DFO, it's
DFO.
navigation protection program.
And they're insisting that we do something. So based on that, when Michelle came to see us, we decided, well, then that's the one that we should be submitting the application for. And there is a clause in there that sometimes you don't have to do the matching if you can show that there is a real need and also the benefits to the community. Well, it's the only swim area in the region now. We even had children from Lac Devani here this year because there was no swim program. So it's crucial in order for us to get that going. There was close to 110 kids who were registered, which is a huge success. So we prioritized, and that's the one we moved forward on. So I will have to get hold of them, but I needed to get more information about the campground, but we had just got the feasibility study. There's 2 other possibilities, but we need hydro at the table or Crown Lands, and we all know how difficult that's been.
Well, I think we're just running out of time. I don't see how this council can commit to anything at this point.
That doesn't mean you can't stockpile.
Well, that's why I wanted to talk to Michelle. So can you get hold of SIDM and Jason can maybe give us an idea about culverts and stockpiling what we can do there. And I think what it'll do is it'll only make that site more valuable that we're going to be putting up for sale because now there will be an access.
In that letter you were reading, it said something about a conceptual drawing. Do they have something like that yet or no?
Well, that was for the retreat.
We did have one in the vision plan years and years ago, but the conceptual plan was for something like Paradise Village. It was for larger trailers to be on that site, but there is a conceptual plan. Depending on how big you want those lots, we can go with the standard that the province has and what we are using, and it'd be pretty easy to determine. But
What are the sizes? 60 by 30, 50 by 30, something like that?
2,400 square feet, isn't it?
Well, it's 60 by 40.
I think so. Might be wrong. I'd have to go back, but if SIDM is saying, no, we can't do that, then really we can't move forward. We'll have to say, sorry, we'll have to pass.
Can I ask Diane a question?
Go ahead.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
What was the connection between a artist in residence and campground? I'm missing something here.
The artist residency was one of the projects that we had submitted. And the campground was another one that had been identified. So what they decided to do was to put them both together. And the municipality couldn't apply for the funding. You needed to have the CDC or the community club apply for it.
I see, okay.
And the community club is certainly not going to be undertaking 2 major projects.
No.
The booms are a priority and have been for a while, so.
Let's worry about getting the stockpiling up here, but
Yeah.
send the 38,000 if we can.
Okay.
And over the time, we can come up with a conceptual plan, and who do we get to do the plan? I skipped out, KGS or something like that, or no?
I would not recommend KGS, I don't think, because they could come up with the road plan.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, vision, I don't know if they would
I don't
have
think
that.
it was yours, but that's them where you're.
I think in that plan, there's some companies that have been mentioned, and one of the architectural groups that came out here actually was Blue Stem. I think, when they did that walkabout on the walkway, I think they probably do that, or Sedem would know somebody.
Right, okay,
Well, thanks, Michelle.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
So what are we on now, 5.1?
Item,
PBLE enforcement
Yeah.
file?
Yeah.
PBLE enforcement file 22-12-1 Leisure Falls Drive.
Actually, these are all together, are they not?
Yeah, they're all the same person.
I,
On 5 and 9.
I'll move on, yeah.
This is the third
So
time,
you're seconder?
So,
this is the third time this property has come to council. First time was for cleanup, the second time was for, there was an attachment on a trailer on one of these lots that we had to remove because it was very dangerous. And now again,
grass is long.
the grass is super long, unsightly. So it's.
And there was complaints, I would assume,
Yeah.
more than one,
There was a complaint that came in.
and public safety, public PBLE went to look at it, and this is the start of the process.
So,
So have they got back to you on anything yet?
no, we had
They're
to post
ignoring
the
you, or-
property, yeah, we had to post the property because they stopped accepting.
So what are you asking us to do here?
Well, I'm asking you to approve a cleanup.
okay, and I've got a question with
Proceed.
regards to I read all three of these
They're all the
every
same.
time, and I'm not understanding why we've got a whereas and a whereas and a whereas, and they all say the same thing. In the same,
It's the same problem on all
It's the-
three lots.
no,
No, they're
they're,
all three different things. The whereas notice of property inspection, and then the next one's whereas bylaw municipal warning. And
oh,
then the
okay.
next one is whereas bylaw municipal order.
All
it's a
right,
process
thank you
and we
very
have to
much,
go
because
through
I
the
missed
process.
those, I'm reading the body of it, and I'm going, they all say the same thing, what's going on here?
Because we've gone through the process, this process, this process.
Okay, good, got it.
And they are just not getting back to you at all.
They did, like the first time, the first cleanup, they did get back to me once. And I let them know that if they needed an extension, they can request that from council. It needs to be cleaned up. And then after that, she never took my call again, and she didn't respond to any of the.
So you're asking to go in there to do the grass cutting, I guess. So we can
Yeah,
just send Public Works in to do that, or hire a private company? or-
We would hire a private.
PBLE would be the ones that hire a contractor to do the work.
Yeah.
And
We
then it
give
gets
them-
billed to the
We
person.
let the landowners, whenever we're going in there too, right? Say if the private company would call, they're going to go in on the 10th, we let the owners know that they're gonna come on the 10th, right? Or do we?
No, not unless they're.
Okay, I'm
You
curious.
have some date on there. It says if it's not done by this date,
Yeah.
we'll be going in there.
Yeah.
Or after this date, we'll be coming in there at some point.
Okay, okay.
But we can't do anything until I.
Just remember the one we had this summer, we gave them the date and he moved in 2 days before it cleaned it all up.
That would be great.
Save this money.
Really?
Which worked out perfect. You know?
Oh, got done, and we didn't have to put it on his
That's
tax.
right, yeah, okay.
So we have a mover and a second. Or any further discussion
I
here?
do
None,
have-
call.
One more
Go
question.
ahead.
We put this expense on the taxes of the landowner, correct?
If they don't pay it,
Okay, are we entitled to do that because we've gotten into trouble with the ombudsman before for putting stuff on somebody's taxes,
For putting
Yes.
legal expenses on someone's
legal
taxes.
expenses?
But not, this is, yes, absolutely, we're allowed.
Okay, thank you.
But the ombudsman's findings generally are recommendations.
yeah.
I do appreciate that, but it doesn't look good publicly if we're doing things like cowboys and not listening to the ombudsman, and I agree with
All
you.
the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed.
Thank you.
Stephanie's doing an excellent job at this. Thank you very much. And any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried.
That was all three of them at one time.
That's the same person or same people.
So we'll just have the mover and seconder.
Be the
Yeah.
same for each one.
Yes. Public Works and Operations, number 6.1, Bell MPS Customer Consent Agreement. This is a concrete pad moving from our site where we're talking, I forget the name of the road.
105, it's on PTH 11.
Yeah, it's
In Pine Forks area.
yeah. So it's getting moved and it's $19,000 approximately.
21,000.
Jay's okay with that?
We had no choice really. I mean,
Why, yeah, I just was curious why we had to pay for it if they're moving
because it needs to be moved because of the subdivision, right? Or the power drive stuff.
it. Oh,
I would
okay.
assume it's on the road or something. They gotta move it.
Yeah, it's-
Okay, I
That's
wasn't,
proposed.
that part didn't understand that. Okay, good. That's where it was.
So I guess what it is Public Works or administration is asking us to approve this, to pay for it, move this thing, and if we don't, we can't put a road in basically for,
Can't continue that project of the subdivision.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Did we have a mover and a seconder?
Yes, we did, yeah.
No, not for this one.
I didn't hear.
We didn't do it for this one yet.
No,
Whatever.
Is there a mover?
Diane, you moving?
Diane? Ken? Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor, carried. The next one,
Jackfish.
request to rename 102 North.
so this one was brought to the August 16th meeting and it was tabled. Because there was some discussion as
It sounds
to,
like he's asking another question now.
Yeah, but he's reinstated for everything.
Yeah, what happened was he wanted to have the road named.
And we said, okay, as long as he's gonna pay all the fees.
That's correct. And then I guess it came back to the August 16th meeting to make sure that you were okay with it, and then it was tabled.
It was
And I
tabled.
wasn't sure, so I don't know why it was tabled.
I think we were waiting for you, wasn't that it?
no, I think there was concern that it would set a precedent and
Yeah, but if he's paying for it, we say no.
You know, it's not the money, it's
One person wants it changed, and there would probably be,
17.
well, we know for sure there's at least one other that would have an issue with it, but
And actually, one of the concerns I had is that the cemetery is right at the end of that road and it's.
No, you're on the wrong road.
No.
You were moving up, this is Wall Road, right?
that's this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, this is 101.
It says
And he wants to-
102.
102 north.
102.
It says 102 north, and if you go 102 north, that runs right past the school. That's Jackfish Creek Road Lake.
We need Jay's.
No, it's not the one that we want, the other one, it's
102 is on the hill, isn't it?
it's on, by Hilltop Road.
101 is on the hill. 102 is the one that runs in front of Walter White
It's a
School.
different request.
Well, maybe someone put in the wrong number by
No,
mistake.
we're looking at Wall Road,
This is the Wild Road.
right, yeah.
Okay, well then it's not 102 north.
It's not Jackfish Lake Road.
It's not Jackfish Lake Road, and that's what this says, 102 north Jackfish Lake Road.
Okay, well,
Well,
that's
that's
what,
the one-
that's what Mr. Watt put in, the email.
Yes.
Well,
One or
that,
two
I
north.
object, I don't think that should be changed.
Well, is that maybe why it was tabled?
It could be because
Yeah.
I don't really want that changed. That's the one that runs right through where the school is, right in front of the school.
We have the roads wrong.
You see where
So
Fay
in
Road
his
is?
We
email,
don't.
Jackfish is the one right opposite Fay Road, on the other side of the,
I know,
but you're talking Hilltop
So-
Road.
no,
okay.
yes, the Waz live on Hilltop Road.
Right, and that's the one you want changed, and I got no
That's the
problem
one
with
he
that.
wants changed, not
so
me.
in his
Okay,
email,
that's the one he wants
Right.
changed, and I have no problem with that one being changed, but not this one.
This one's known as Jackfish Lake Road.
Yes,
Well, this
And it
is
has
from,
been
this
since
is
the
from
beginning.
Michelle, this one.
No,
but this one has
this
a
is
sign
from
on it. that says
Patrick, the
102
Hang on a
north
sec, let's hear what Michelle has here.
The email is from Patrick.
Okay,
His email dated on May 4th of this year.
Yeah.
Asking, the subject he wrote is Road 102 North Jackfish Lake. Please discuss naming Road 102 North to Wa Road. That's his request
Well, I
in this
think he
email.
meant
Whether
101.
he's got the
We
numbers
better go
wrong,
back
whether he's
with
got
it,
the
yeah.
name wrong, I don't know.
We better go send him a letter. Yeah, send him a letter.
go on to the map and let's see what the one is where.
Let's just table it and go back to him and get it straightened out for the
Well,
next
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, table it,
I
yeah.
think that the consensus, I think, is we don't want to change 102 North.
No,
Correct.
Right.
So we can tell him that right off the hop, that it doesn't need to come back here.
And if it's a mistake and he meant to say another road, then it'll come back.
yeah,
The one he means is right beside, well, where his parents live,
right,
and the
And
the
that's
site,
fine, I got no
the camping
problem with
site
it.
there.
yeah, Hilltop.
Yeah, right at the top of
Yeah,
the.
I got no problem with that road, but not 102 North.
He's got a wrong address on there, so get the address right, because we're.
I never thought of
He's talking
exactly,
about
but I just assumed. it was
change
the
the
other
name.
one.
But this,
Okay.
but I'm not,
And you would consider the Hilltop Road?
oh, yeah.
Well, he's got 102 and it's saying Waugh Road in his body of his letter. 102, I guess, is the wrong number.
Right, I'm just saying, if it comes back that he actually wants that Hilltop Road
Yeah,
changed,
just get the
and
right.
he had the numbers wrong, would you still consider
Yeah.
changing it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not a
yeah,
problem.
As long as
For
he's
one
paying
person.
for everything, but the last letter I read there sounds like he's saying, unless we're responsible for something to pay for, we gotta pay it.
No, we're not paying
No,
anything.
he would pay.
101, I mean, the only thing and not in defense of laws, but I mean, the laws have homestead, I think, well, I don't know how many decades they've been there. Hilltop.
What's the name of the road?
There is no name.
There is
Check
no
what's-
name.
Just one.
What highway is it? It's Road 101, isn't it? Yeah.
You put the wrong number in.
Okay, well, let's.
Oh, no, it
let's
is
get back to
102.
Okay.
101's at the bottom of the hill. where the gate
Jackfish,
is. Sorry.
Jackfish Road is the one that runs right in front of Walter White School.
Yeah.
Off 59.
So he's saying 102
He wants to
Jackfish.
rename- He said he wants to rename 102 Jackfish Lake Road. Does that
To
make sense?
102
That's what he said
Law
he was
Road.
Doesn't
doing.
make sense.
Okay, so 102
Let's get
North,
this straightened
Jackfish
out.
Lake
Can you
Road
bring that up on the inside? To be
runs
sure,
right along in front of Walter White School.
that would be 10,
2,
no.
yeah.
101.
101's at the bottom of the hill.
And 102 is further down the hill.
It's out.
There's a
102
green
South
sign
Lawn.
that says 102 North,
Yeah, we're
Jackfish
talking
Lake
about
Road.
the
Okay,
other
let's
road.
just hang on a second. Let's just get the map out
Yeah.
here and we'll see what's going on.
Because I
And
could
if
be
we
wrong.
can't figure it out, then we'll go back to him and he'll have to verify what he wants changed.
Okay.
The one thing I will say, there was in our old road numbers that we used when we did work, there was a Waugh Road. But there is nothing legal.
That's Jackfish Lake Road.
I
Now,
go,
Chuck Moore
my own
is
way.
taking the
Yeah,
one-
see, that says Jackfish Lake Road, right opposite Shea Road.
Yeah, no, no.
Or something.
Where's the school?
And that's it.
Jackfish.
Right there, yeah.
Okay.
The school's right on the corner where the green
Yeah.
marks are.
Exactly.
Can you get to the,
That's
I
102.
don't know why he's put
Yeah,
Jackfish.
102 right there.
One, it is 102, yeah. Oh. Yeah, 102 is the right one. That's the school one that's at the top of this page now.
And there's Jackfish Lake.
And that's
So
Jackfish
he's
Lake
put
Road.
two different names of roads on.
No, that's the school right there,
Yeah,
Jack.
yeah.
That's Jackfish Lake Road. That's
Yeah, but-
correct.
But it's not
The
102.
102.
102.
I don't know why you
102 is
put
farther back.
Jackfish on.
Well, it
102.
says Fay
So,
Road, and I'm saying that Fay Road is on one side
Well,
and
so-
on 59, and Jackfish Lake Road
You
is
got
on the other side.
You got it, but when you go to the bottom of this page now, it'll say 102. So he does have the number right.
But,
Don't
it-
know why
it's
he
not
added
Jackfish
Jackfish to his 102.
okay, so where's the hilltop?
Go down, and I think when I say go down, that's the wrong way.
Right there.
Yeah,
It says, no, keep going,
you got one right
There's
there.
102.
right there, that's it.
Well, how can there be two 102?
It doesn't say 102 up there, it
Jackfish
just
Lake
says
Road does not
Jackfish.
say 102 North.
It does on the green,
Combined,
it does on the green sign as you drive
Well,
by.
The tags on here
I'll take a
say
picture next
Jackfish
time.
Lake Road. It doesn't say anything about 102. And then 102 is a separate road on its own.
he wants to change 102 to
Waugh Road.
Waugh Road.
Wow.
He
I
owns,
have no problem with that as long as he's paying for it.
Patrick?
yeah.
Just question him on the name of the road, that's all.
Yeah, just take that Jackfish Road.
Off of that 102.
Okay,
Good, good.
okay.
So bring it back to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Leave it for the new
Well,
council.
it's not stupid having two 102s.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just dumb.
KGS site meeting,
I didn't know that I'm up
Oh, is
there.
that right?
6.3.
Oh, okay, I think I kind of spoke to this during my
Yeah,
report.
this is just info.
This thing, yeah.
Yes.
Economic development, 8.1 proposal to subdivide 4600-22-7674.
Believe that you've already passed this
We're
one.
done.
Yeah, we're done with this one, I
This one's
think.
done?
Yeah.
We have a vote on it. Yeah, that was Wolf.
Yeah.
SEDEM feasibility study.
That was me
We
discussing.
just did that. That was the one
My
presentation.
God, I
so.
think we're finished.
There was also, I need the refreshing. Oh, no, it's there. Yeah. There's a resolution for Riverside Developments to sign a development
Oh,
agreement.
right, I'll
on the
make that
condition that the
motion.
proposed development agreement be authorized to be signed after the required missing information is received and entered into the agreement.
Are you moving that?
Yeah, I'll move it.
No second.
Any further discussion? Here none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. And you might want to let Walter know.
I will be calling him tonight.
Yeah, that's
So there was
as
some,
soon as you can.
there was some resolutions that we had to do after we were.
Just to make sure he's clear that he's not coming to the office tomorrow morning to sign it. I will let him know when it's, the information I've received is here.
Okay.
And then we'll let him know to come sign it.
Okay.
I've got to wait for the solicitor.
Are
and
you
I've gotta
gonna
wait
let
for
him
the
know that?
solicitor.
It's just that I've got this phone call pending and I haven't returned it because
Okay,
I didn't know what.
well, I can, I more than likely will not do it today,
Okay.
so.
You
can
can-
tell
you
him
can-
to
I
come
will
in.
mention it to him that you will be contacting him
Or tell him to
when
come
you
in
get the
or-
documents.
They tell them to call tomorrow, but not to come in.
Yeah, don't commit to sign because it's not.
Oh, we ever come back
We'll
here?
call him, won't you?
So what resolution did we need after?
That
We're
was the
not
one.
doing- we're
That
not
was the
doing-
one? Okay. Just making
Oh,
sure.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing, and this is something that does not get said anywhere near as often as what it should. I know we talk about Public Works and the great job that they're doing and doing on an ongoing basis for us, because they are, but there's a heck of a lot of work that gets done by,
So a lot of our work is, it's easy to get a thanks for. A tree falls on the road, we cut it up, it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's seen. Their stuff is all behind the scenes, which a lot of our work is from them. Wasn't for them, we couldn't do our job better, because if we didn't get paid, we wouldn't go keep working.
well, from the sounds of it with Stephanie and the service tracker stuff that comes out, you guys wouldn't have anything to do if she wasn't doing the job.
Yeah.
But no, it's really much appreciated, and I know some of it, especially with you for the last few weeks, and Michelle and I for the last few weeks, it's been, what a bloody headache kind of a deal. The other side of it is chasing down all of these PBLE issues that come up. Whether it's something that's come up because of a planning issue, or whether it's dealing with some of these other issues that are coming up, like the unsightlies and stuff like that getting all put together. And to be able to come in every morning and look at the thing and go, my gosh, what have we got to deal with today? It's like, yeah, you guys are doing a fantastic job.
I will second that emotion.
Have we done everything now?
Did we adjourn? We did
No.
adjourn.
No,
We get everything done?
Yes.
Is that what do we have? Anything else?
There's nothing else we have to vote on from in camera?
adjournment.
I'm waiting tomorrow.
So is that moved?
No,
You
I
moved it?
said move to adjourn.
Where are you going?
Second, meeting's over, you can stop the